Great. So quick welcome to everybody. Thank you for being here once again for the Bend Water Advisory Group. This is our February meeting. We're going to delve into a part of water that we haven't really had a chance to talk about as a group yet, which is gray water. And hopefully Shane is in the room. I can't tell yet, but I know this was a topic of interest. Yay. All right. I know this was a topic of interest for a couple of WAG members. It's also a nice synergy with Council Goal to explore potential of gray water. So we're going to delve into this topic. It is very high level exploratory and hoping to really lean into the experience of all of the WAG members. You know, your lived and professional experiences, you've been in Bend and worked elsewhere in the state too, to bring that to today's conversation. So hopefully we can have a nice dynamic discussion here today about the possibilities of gray water. We do have a couple of special guests in our speaker lineup. I think it's probably, Laura, if we want to start with, so Joe McClay, Jerry Waugh are joining from the building division, and I don't think the camera is pointing to them in the room yet, but if we maybe want to wave and catch the camera for the two of you guys, see if that shows up for our folks online.
Way to go, Jerry. It's like we planned, brother. Get fired up.
So we'll do a couple of introductions here, and you guys can get to know our WAG members. And we've got a mix of folks who are in the conference room and online here today. What we're hoping to accomplish is just explore the opportunities, possibilities, and considerations related to gray water, and also what that potential scope of a city evaluation to address that council goal might look like. So that's what we have in store today. Generally, our gray water topic is going to follow 3 sections. So we'll hear a little bit about the basics. What is gray water? The sources of it. Talk a little plumbing code, state and local, and then talk about conservation potential. I think we have at least one example of how gray water has been implemented at a location within Bend right now, and hopefully others can bring some of your experience to the table there too, and share any case studies or conversations you've had around gray water systems. And then just talk other considerations, seasonality, customer type, some of these other things that fit into how gray water might be implemented. So that's the cadence we're going to follow today. We do also hope to invite the WAG members into a chance to do a little cameo. So we're going to save some time at the end of the conversation. If you are willing to go on camera and talk a little bit about what makes you love Bend Water, and be part of that campaign kickoff. And if not on camera today, yeah.
That includes people online as well. We can, because we're recording this, we can take clips from those online. You can also tell everybody why you love Bend Water and help us with our 100-year anniversary of the water source campaign.
And if you want to be part of it, but you're not ready today, or for those who might not be able to attend today, certainly I think there's a chance to contribute after today's meeting too, if you're willing to speak up. All right, so quick reminder, our January meeting, we got to kind of peek behind the curtain of all the data and analysis that goes into the water conservation program. Dan shared some information about the program, which is in its kind of annual data analysis and evaluation timeframe, as well as its 5-year benchmark in terms of the planning. So all that information from our January meeting will help with some of the conversations we're going to have about water conservation as we head into our next couple of meetings here this spring. We talked a bit about the right-of-way code and standards and some takeaways from that process of implementing those over the last year, and about some of the modeling work and other efforts to forecast what measures might be most successful and have the best impact as we head into new seasons of water conservation. Also got this group's feedback on some of the campaign components. So Anne joined us and talked about audiences and key messages and kind of the types of outreach that are planned and engagement that are planned related to this special 100-year anniversary for the surface water supply. So thank you all for your ideas and excitement around that campaign, and hopefully we'll have some more updates as that work moves forward, and definitely appreciated having this group as a sounding board to some of those ideas that the city's been working on. Pretty big celebration. Any, I guess, from Dan or from Lori, any other things that you wanted to note related to either of these topics?
I'll note on the campaign, just for everybody to know, so we're like kind of officially rolling it out later this month. And in fact, I'll be going to city council for a good of the order item. Whatever that is, end of the month. 17th. Thank you, Julie. To introduce them to the campaign and the ability to celebrate that we've had 100 years of really awesome water in Bend. So there'll be a lot more coming, and we'll send things out. We'll send links and opportunities to everybody, but super excited about that. Dan, did you?
I guess on the water conservation program side, this is one of the measures that we can potentially run through this upcoming analysis for our water conservation management conservation plan update. So the information shared here today can be used to kind of model that scenario of either what customer type or in what form you pursue gray water.
Awesome. Aubrey, I might want to back up just a little bit, and since we have some guests in the room, I wanted Elizabeth to introduce it. We've got some students here, and also just before we do that, I'll just for their sake and for our friends in the building department's sake, this group, the Water Advisory Group, it's not a formal like council appointed committee. It's actually a sounding board to the Water Services Department. So Water Services manages our drinking water, wastewater, stormwater systems. And this group is a bunch of stakeholders who are interested in water, have work related to water, and are willing to meet once a month really nicely and help us be that sounding board as we try to develop programmatic details. So unlike a council committee that's directed by council and is inputting directly to them, that we get to dive more into the weeds and really talk more details about how we can get things done. And this is a really great group that way. So that's for that. And then Elizabeth, do you want to talk about the students that are here today?
Yeah, so I was contacted by a couple students at OSU in the natural resource program that are doing a capstone project. And so I met with two of them today, Caitlin and Evan, but there are 3 additional students here who I haven't met. So I don't know if they're all doing the same capstone. It's for stormwater as the topic.
Yes.
Okay, so they're doing a capstone project with stormwater as the topic, I think specifically flooding, and trying to figure out kind of recommendations for what can be done. So I talked to them a little bit ahead of time. But they were interested in attending a WAG meeting to learn more about how the WAG meeting works and the process. And I know this meeting isn't focused on stormwater, but they're kind of just here to listen and learn. If they each want to say their name and
Sure.
I'm Gabe.
I'm Kate. Nice to meet you. I'm a senior at OSU Cascades studying natural resources.
My name is Evan. I'm also a senior at OSU, also in natural resources.
So professor, is class you're all in?
Skylar Herzog.
Okay, yeah. I went to OSU Cascades too, so. I know Skylar, yeah.
Name is Jacob, also a senior at OSU Cascades.
My name's Reese. I'm also a senior at Cascades in the NR program, and me and Kate run the Natural Sciences Club there.
Glad to have you here. Great. Okay. Aubrey, would it be helpful to go around the room so you know who's in the room for the meeting?
Yeah,
Usually-
let's start online first today, and then we can go through the conference room. So Ashlyn, you were first to join here today. Do you want to say a quick hello?
Sure. I'm Ashlyn Gribsco. I'm with Polish Homes. I manage our land department. So I represent the developer committee or community on this committee.
Thanks, Ashlyn. And Jay.
Jay Bottleson, landscape architect, here to learn and here to offer whatever advice I can when I feel it's appropriate.
Thanks, Jay. Angela?
Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Reinhold with the Water Resources Department, Senior Water Advisor for Central Region. It's nice to see everyone and to meet the students that are joining us today.
And Mike.
Hi, Mike Zabo with Zabo Landscape Architecture. I'm a landscape architect representing the design community, and I am in the car between meetings, so sorry. I will jump on here in a few minutes.
Thank you, Mike. Sorry to put you on the spot there too while you're driving. Stay safe. All right. So Tom, I can see you. Is there anybody to your left in the room?
Jerry Waugh with the city. I'm the city plumbing inspector. And I am Tom Headley with Century West Engineering. I'm a senior project manager here in town. There's a consulting firm, and I am able to offer some insight from a consulting perspective.
Jerry introduced.
From Master Landscape Architect with Ben Park and Rec.
Julie Lally, I'm the communications coordinator for water services.
And Lori Feo with Water Services. Everybody knows me.
Elizabeth O'Keefe, stormwater program manager with water services.
I'm Dina Cook, I'm a program coordinator for building safety.
Joe McClegg, Building Safety Division Manager for City of Bend.
Dan Denny, Water Conservation with Water Services.
Dan Cochran, senior geologist with the Wallace Group.
So that's the group, Aubrey. I
Yay.
can link back in. Thank you.
All right. So as folks know, our WAG members brings such a huge range of experience, and excited to have guests here today too. And for the students, OSU students, please chime in with your thoughts and questions too as we roll through today's content. We're going to start out the Greywater discussion with, I think, Joe and Jerry. The two of you are going to kick us off, and I can roll slides for you when you're ready.
I think I'm going to kick off the first slide and then I'll hand it over to them.
Got it. And actually, you know, I forgot about this. So for those who are new to our meeting, we always try to have a couple of framing questions for our group. So just as a preview, we were interested in hearing from WAG members your experience with Greywater and other communities or systems within Bend, what you see as key challenges, lessons learned, best practices. So kind of those general thoughts that you might have or questions that might be important to ask here while the city is exploring Greywater. And then what do you see the value of Greywater as compared to other conservation efforts in particular? So some questions to keep in mind as we roll through the discussion. And then Lori, here's the council.
I will take this one. So just so everybody knows, it was interesting when we had our meeting in December and we asked what topics are people interested in, and Greywater was mentioned. Also, our city council sets 2-year-long goals. So what's on the screen here is they set goals in different areas. So you can see on the right-hand side, the circle with the different goal topic areas, and the green climate resiliency is our kind of topic area. And then there are different, say, strategies underneath that goal. So the overall goal is promote a sustainable and resilient community by advancing climate action, recognizing affordability, availability of clean energy, protecting natural resources, and building wildfire resiliency. So that's kind of their focus for climate resiliency. There's a strategy about protecting our watershed through water conservation and stewardship, reducing per capita water use by the end of the biennium. And then there's kind of sub-strategies, and you'll notice in highlighted is one of those sub-strategies mentions explore the use of Greywater. That came from one particular council member. They have interest. So this was great. This is our opportunity to talk about this. And then as Dan mentioned, there's an opportunity to consider as he's updating the water conservation program, whether this is a measure we should add to the list if we think there's going to be bang for the buck from it in terms of water use reduction. So that's kind of just a little bit of background, and then I'll hand it over to our friends in buildings to talk about this with everybody.
I'll just do a quick intro and then hand it over to Jerry. Again, my name's Joe, Building Safety Division Manager. We got about 41 employees. If you haven't noticed, Bend is growing fast. We got a lot of challenges. Our division, we look at energy, we look at accessibility, we look at anything on private property, big, little, doesn't matter. We look at it. We have plumbing, we have electrical, we have solar, we have gray water, we have stormwater, we have a lot of stuff across our desk. I'm saying all this because some of the conflicting issues we're trying to solve is council goals are affordable housing, densify, compactable. We get too spread out. We got to go. So keep that in mind when we go through all this stuff, that we're trying to densify, we're trying to lower the cost of housing, we're trying to fight wildfires with non-combustible sidings and things like that. We have a lot going on. We're thrilled to be here. This was a great topic. And we've had a few gray water examples here in Bend, and we're going to teach you a little bit about what we've learned and hopefully learn something from you guys. So thanks for having us, and take it away, Jerry.
And I think, we're all open for questions if we can answer them, but we'll probably do this at the end. We just got a few slides, and that way we can get through those, and then maybe we can do our questions if that's okay at the end. So, as we're here to talk a little bit about gray water. So what is gray water? Well, in Oregon, gray water includes wastewater discharge from showers, bathtubs, bathroom sinks, and laundry machines. What it does not include is, discharge from toilets, garbage waste, kitchen sinks with garbage disposables, or wastewater contaminated with soil diapers. So if it's, appropriately collected and handled, gray water can be used safely for flushing toilets and urinals, as well as irrigating certain trees and plants. The use of gray water reduces, our demand on the sources of our waters, which you guys are part of here, such as, our potable water, our surface water, and our groundwater. And we'll get a little bit deeper on some of the things and maybe some examples of what we have used these for later. And that little picture there, we'll discuss that here in a minute. So we can move to the next slide. So Oregon recognizes there's 3 types of gray water. There's type 1, type 2, and type 3. Type 1 is maybe one of the most common ones, least inexpensive, and we've had a few people trying this one. And what that is, it's basically your untreated gray water or gray water that has passed through a physical process to remove, your solids, your fats, your oils, and your grease. And type 1 is it's the lowest quality, and so once again, it's probably the least expensive. And it's only used for subsurface irrigation. So that's going to be like DEQ requirements. If my memory serves me correctly, it's like 12 inches outside the building is pretty much the target where it comes out. And then what it is, it distributes it later, and it'll surface up to irrigate your plants and stuff from below grade. So it's for subsurface. That's type 1. That helps with the contamination and stuff. So type 2, gray water, it's treated by a chemical or biological process to reduce the total suspended solids and organic matter concentrations. So because this type of gray water is stabilized through treatment, it can be used for drip irrigation and in your landscape ponds. So instead of just coming from below surface, this one can be used above grade because it has this process done to it. Type 3 is basically, it's just like type 2 gray water standards, and it's disinfected to reduce the bacteria and other potential pathogens. And because this is a higher level of treatment, this type 3 is suitable for additional uses, such you could actually use it for your sprinkler irrigation or dust control. So it's a safety measure, basically what that is. So we can go to our next slide. Thank you. So our gray water regulations, DEQ basically regulates this. So anything outside of the structure. Says DEQ regulates gray water reuse and disposal systems under the Oregon Administrative Rules, Chapter 340, Division 53, which establishes a policy that encourages gray water reuse while protecting public health, safety, and welfare, public water supplies, and waters of the state. These rules are based on recommendation from DEQ's Gray Water Advisory Committee. And we've kind of already talked about this. They have 3 different types of gray water. It's the type 1, 2, and 3 that we just mentioned, different levels of treatment. So these rules are established treatment and monitoring requirements. It gives us the rules also talk about setbacks, access, and exposure controls, and site management practices necessary to protect the public and the health and environment. And that's found there under that OAR. And then we'll give you these at the end. And I think it comes out in this on this slideshow too, if you want to go back and look this up, because it really goes in depth of what the rules are that you got to plan for before you start designing one of these systems. We'll move on to our next one. This is just kind of an example of some stuff that, of a gray water system. So the gray piping, which technically is going to be either purple or it's going to have a labels on it showing that it stands out. Because if you ever did a remodel or something, we look in our Oregon plumbing, on our SAM, basically of alternate methods that, you don't want to have a remodel and somebody tie into it and they tie into the wrong thing. So that's why we'll have to be labeled. But in this scenario, the light gray is our gray water. So that's getting the waste from our laboratory, our bathtub, and our wash machine. And the black line is it's going to be our black water. That's coming off of our toilet, and then it's coming off of our kitchen sink waste there. And it's going straight out to the sewer, as you can see. Or wherever that red circle is at, there's a Y in there. So as you're using this, it's not showing it, but it is required. There's going to be a 3-way valve that goes right around there that can be turned on or off. So DEQ, if you get a permit for them, they'll tell you in Oregon when you can and cannot use basically your system. So when you can use it, you would turn that valve, it would stop it from going down your sanitary sewer, and then it would disperse and go outside your building for your irrigation. And like I say, in some states, you can probably do this. I think maybe even year round, but Oregon's a little bit different because of our climate and our water tables. So that's but so there will be a valve there. Next slide, please. So this is our little first picture, same thing. Just you can see the valve that's
Showering.
okay. So our gray water here, it's your shower, your bathroom sink, your washing machine, shows the same thing. It's just that valve that will be turned certain parts of the year. It will go down the sanitary sewer. Then when you are able to use it in the summer months, you can turn that, then it goes outside. And then this is the one key factor here. So like our landscapers and designers, when they design this stuff for you too, once it leaves that 3-way valve outside that building, that's where our plumbing code stops, and DEQ regulates all of that on there. So, but we're looking at everything to make sure we've got the right fixtures in there. It does require a plan review for us to make sure it's done correctly inside the building, so we don't cause further contamination outside the building. And that's why even our labeling our pipe is very important, to protect our, everyone's health later.
But like that box with the pump and the surge tank, that's, you don't look at that.
That's not going to be me. No.
And this would be type 1, just the subsurface irrigation.
Exactly. So this is the simplest one. This is where we brought up later. I think somebody mentioned a certain site that has this. And then for right there, that's the subsurface. So that's then going back up and like say, once again, going off the memory, it's talking to the EQ. I think it's like 12 inches, that there's a certain depth in there. And so that would be type 1, as Joe just mentioned.
So with that, you guys live in Bend, Oregon, you freeze, that 12 inches will freeze, and that's why it's limited.
Yeah, we can freeze down to 30 inches solid here at times. This year, not so much. Okay, if we can get our next slide. So this is just real similar. We just picked a few examples that we could found, and these are off the internet, so none of them are always could be a little bit different. But we've seen this before where like maybe somebody wants to just have one particular bathroom, or maybe you're doing a remodel and you don't want to tear your whole house apart. You could pick and choose things, or if you could do it all together if you wanted. So here's a simple one where there's just a bathroom sink up there where that shows that P-trap and then the bathtub. So this 3-way valve here could be inside the building in an access panel or somewhere. And then you would turn that, it would mainly go to your sanitary sewer, but once you could use it, you could flip that, and it could even be right below your sink too, if it was just, that's all you were using. And then it could go out to your irrigation system. It'll have to be labeled and stuff. So these are just some examples. So you can to me, I'm a picture person, so. Okay. And here's one that I actually did a review on, not this particular one, but it was similar to this. This is actually a pretty simple process. It was just a wash machine only. So if you can see the washing machine, the box behind it, where we all have at our house, we stick that little flexible hose in there. Well, here you would pipe that and put that 3-way valve there, and that would normally go down your sanitary sewer. But then the months that you're able to do it, you would turn that, and then it would go out and do your below grade irrigation too for that. So, and that's just showing one fixture. So there's many different ways you can do this. It doesn't have to be a whole house system. So that's basically the kind of what we'd be doing for distribution outside for the irrigation, that type 1, 2, and 3. And our next slide, this involves a little bit more of the plumbing code. So gray water really isn't in our plumbing code. So what the state did is they created, it's called the SAM. So it's a statewide alternate method. And the state of Oregon Building Codes Division has a SAM. It's a statewide alternate method. as they did it back in like 2017. And it covers gray water reuse systems for commercial and residential installations. So in Oregon, we're able to do this, bring it back into the building. And this particular system could be all indoors, right? So we did one where one was in a garage, it goes to this tank. So if you see there, we have our shower and our bathtub. It goes to this tank. It's being treated. So this isn't like a type 1, this is like type 3, whereas you have to be treated because you're bringing this back into your system. And then your system's isolated, so you can only flush your toilets with it. In other states, I think you are allowed to go to the wash machine because somebody did plumb it that way here, and I happened to show up and they had to replumb it. They had to take that out. You can't go to your wash machine. I'm all for that because if your system isn't working good, you'd be wearing those clothes. But I guess it's like your hot tub, right? You know, depends on, some of them are clean and some of them probably aren't. So anyway, so this is just an example of what you can do indoors. And
Treatment mean? Like what sort of treatment is that?
so it's good. Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. So yeah, so it's more of like bacteria and different things that they're gonna get treated for. Next slide, please. Thanks to Dina, we found this one online, so it says, things to consider. This is just a typical example of our water usage. It says the average person in the United States uses approximately 50 gallons of potable water a day for indoor use. And installing low plumbing fixtures and water conservation systems can reduce the potable water consumption by almost a third. And that is one thing that the Building Code Division has done over the years. I mean, when I started plumbing, dating myself here, but I started right out of high school. They were 5-gallon toilets is what I was putting, 5-gallon flush toilets. That was typical. Then we went to 3.5. Then we went down to 1.28. Now we have stuff that's even lower than that. So they have been changing and evolving and, you know, trying to make things work. So that's been working. But here's an example of kind of our average, you know, for domestic water use. You know, sometimes we might not think of this, but our shower and our baths are like 35% the consumption. Toilet flushing is 30%, laundry's 20%, kitchen and drinking's 10%, and general cleaning is 5%. I'm not sure that can vary, but that's kind of an average. This next slide is kind of another, just an example of a gray water recycling system for indoor use. This figure shows a basic gray water system. An example shows wastewater from a shower, bathtub, washing machine, and a bathroom sink. It's collected and drained into a holding tank where it's filtered and disinfected because we're going to use it back into the building, so it's going to be disinfected. The treated water is then pumped to supply the toilets for water flushing. So you might think, well, we really can't use it for that much. But if you go back to that chart, you can see that, you know, a toilet uses, you know, quite a bit. Even if I'm sure they probably took this off of our newer flush toilets too, possibly. And then we have a simple system on the next slide. So this talks about, it says, you know, it has a range in sizing, could be from the small ones to, you know, the supply only a single toilet, which this picture is in a home, to large ones supply, you know, all the toilets, maybe like in a commercial building. We have examples of the OSU that's doing that right now. So in this particular picture here, if you look, it's just one sink, it goes down to this tank, and then they're flushing the toilet with that. Then most of these units you can get, as it brings out here, they're like pre-designed units. And so when we dig deeper into the wood, into the weeds with this, you'll see that all these systems, especially for the reuse stuff, it has to be, there's certain listings that they have to carry. You just can't make up your own stuff. And that's to protect the, you know, human life and the stuff that we have going on. So, and we have examples like OSU where you guys all go to. That's been pretty amazing out there. We've got, I think, 3 buildings where everything's pre-plumbed. That way, all our newer ones to do this system. And they have, you know, bigger goals that they have in the next 5 years they're going to do. But so all the toilets, the urinals, and the floor drains all have a separate piping system going to them that they can use for that. So they don't have that basically in use at the moment. So where they're just taking the potable water temporarily and plumbing through there. But when they get their system finished, they're going to do a complete treatment plant out there and then pump that right back into the building. And then we have it all designed and ready to go for when they do it.
And that's a different piping system. We call it purple pipe.
Yeah, and then this one is just labeled because it is actually, you know, copper going back in there, but I've got labeling on everything like it's supposed to be. I got appropriate backflow devices on there because this could be high contamination if your treatment isn't working. So we got to think of, life and safety on that too. So there's,
Say that to identify the cost, that there's a whole other piping system in there. You're not using the same pipe and you get double the bonus. It's like, no, we gotta put.
yeah.
both pipe.
So the it can be either a large system, small system. It just depends on, how it wants to be designed, but it's kind of like two different ways that you can either do, just distribution outside the building, or you could probably combine the two. So there's quite a bit to it. And then our next slide just shows some of the resources you can go to get a lot of this information from. So if you guys keep that in your pocket and you need you're bored one night, there's a lot to it. Yes.
So have, the Dan's water conservation staff should be this book, if folks are interested, in they, after the meeting, can take a look at it. Water Wise Home, it's called, by Laura Allen. And it's actually really cool. I mean, it's like a really step-by-step with all kinds of examples in it. So
One thing I would have to say, I've been a plumber my whole life, and I think it's a really neat concept. But I would say personally, it's kind of designed for maybe when I first moved to Bend, everything was like half acre or 12,000 square foot lot. I think you could really make this work to your benefit. But what's hard now is because we have so many people moving here in our lots and we're densifying and we're trying to get houses on the ground. Our lots are so small and we don't even have anywhere to put stormwater, to be honest with you, on our lots, right? So now you want to introduce gray water, and we've had some people trying this, and we're not trying to be ogres on it, but we also have to protect our community also on top of this. And so DEQ on their things, they have, it's got to be certain distances away from things. One thing that they don't have on there, because they don't regulate building code, they're like, well, we don't have any distances to show 0 for up against the building, but on the building side, we can't introduce water to our footings either. So we've had different people try different things, and it's, I give them kudos for trying, but it's just not always designed for every lot. I mean, it's not always the best scenario for every lot. Yeah, but to reuse back into the building, you could do that even on a small, lot, because it's not going outside and dispersing in the ground. And in other states, they can probably run stuff. You get your landscape guys would probably know more than I would. I think some of it's probably year round, I'm guessing, maybe like in Arizona, in California, where this makes a lot of sense. But up here, our climate, as we can see this year, changes, right? Might have been a good year for it. Many years it isn't. And we have a higher water table. And so it's just being in Oregon is a little different than being in maybe a different climate.
Steve, Mike has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, more of a comment, really. We try to incorporate these gray water systems on a lot of projects, including public works there. And the issue we always run into is, we get all of our precipitation. If we're taking rainwater, let's say, when we go for that, which is not gray water, I understand that. But then you have to hold the water until summer, because most of our precipitation comes in the winter, and it just doesn't pencil out because you have to have these huge cisterns or storage tanks underground. But in a winter like this year, I was literally just meeting with contractors because of this warm spell, and everyone's concerned about everything starting to bud and the irrigation's off. So, had we installed a gray water system with sinks and whatnot, then they could just flip that valve this week while it's warm, and those plants that are coming out of dormancy would get some water. And I mean, it would be great. So that's a really good system, I think, to start considering. Because we lose a lot of plants in weather like this.
Yep, I got tulips.
Specifically trees.
Please go.
Yeah.
It's the holding tank cost, I think, Mike, is what people get hesitant going, well, I may or may not use it. And so how do you get to buy in for that? To say it's a pretty good sized holding tank if you want to get space and indoors.
Yeah.
But even if it was just for like emergency,
Yeah.
kind of winters like this, it would be worth it, really. So
Agreed.
anyways, it was.
Are there
interesting that we're talking about this while I was just having this conversation. There's a contractor
Yeah,
calling me
that's
right
great.
now about it, actually. So
That's good. But
Very timely.
one thing,
Yeah.
I got a question, Jerry. So obviously like new development, the graphic you showed where it's like the on-site little treatment. And I've seen these things advertised for like single family residential homes, for a couple $1,000. and I guess you plumb it into your system and
Was this indoors or outdoors?
it's indoors. So it's taking the gray water from your sinks and whatnot and treating it. And it's like a unit you can put in your garage.
Yeah, I've never seen one that small, but
Well, I mean, this is what's being advertised out there, right? And so obviously new development is easier to get the plumbing and everything right. How difficult is like the permitting for someone that wanted to do that retroactively? Like, Mike was saying.
Machine. For
Yeah, for emergency use, or if there's
Yeah,
an
we just need-
opportunity for toilet flushing.
it would just need to be submitted, because we would have to go through plan review on that. So
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. Like I've had the one with the washing machine. Went through, looked at it, everything met what it's supposed to. That was actually going outside. So that was tier 1 was easy. Something like this wouldn't be bad. Well, the last one I did wasn't submitted the way it was supposed to be permitted. It was caught in during inspections. And so it would be a lot easier if we did that way, but we'd have to make sure that unit was listed, right? Just because you see it advertised,
Right.
you go to Home Depot and you see an accordion D trap, right? That is not legal in the state of Oregon, but they're able to sell it because they can't regulate all that. So we would look to make sure that that was listed by, I think it's IAMO, and it has the proper listings, it has the listing numbers that it has to be, because we want to make sure, we don't want to do our community a disservice and not have sanitation. Right. And that is the purpose of that, yeah.
Yeah. I happened to be listening to a podcast and I was like, it had a homeowner on there who had put one in and talking about all the benefits. It's like, oh, that sounds awesome. We're a tiny home
Yeah.
built in the 80s, but we're on a septic and I got a family of, there's 5
Yeah.
of us. So my concern is always, what's going into my septic tank? Am I overloading it? It's a 1,000-gallon tank. So I thought for our application, oh, that would be fantastic. So I looked into this a little bit for instance, but that's what I was curious, like, what's the permitting around that?
Yeah, and then, so permitting would be easy. It would just be, like say, pretty simple. We would just have you, actually reach out to me if you want to do it. We can practice on yours. And then there is some guidelines in there too. That's where these last things on there, you want to go through there and read that, especially the SAM one. And for the storage tanks to reuse inside, I think it's got to be flushed within, I think you can only hold it for a certain amount of time. Might be 24 hours. I'd have to go back and relook at that because you don't get much of that.
Yeah.
And then maybe you're not getting enough water either. So usually you have a water backup to it. And then at that point, you're going to have an RP device sitting there too. That way, but then you could still reuse it if you had to.
Okay, so stricter backflow.
Yeah, yeah. Like with the one house that somebody will probably bring up, because I think that was on our list. We've got one person that did quite a bit of stuff. We did the rainwater harvesting. We did rainwater rainwater
So the one,
reuse.
there's a picture, Aubrey.
Yeah, and so anyways, we did a lot. He didn't even want to be connected to
This one.
sewer or water, but this year he's probably glad he was.
So I looked at his water use. Funny you say that, because I looked at the water use at this house and they do have a potable meter. And in 23, there was no potable water consumption. And in 23, they started using water.
Yeah, he didn't want to put that in,
Yeah.
but I told him for the state we have to. And then we have an RP device that does that. But he's got a big storage tank. He can collect his rainwater out back. And then he comes back through and I mean, this is not something we're ever going to see because it is not cheap, but it was just a neat thing. It was so many different levels. He retreats his rainwater and then uses that for potable drinking. I mean, they probably do this stuff on cruise ships and stuff too, right? Or all the stuff, different things that we do.
They have a big subsurface holding tank
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
right? How big is that tank?
It is huge.
Out back, that thing's, yeah, instead of getting one also that was maybe just listed and would have been good, they got basically it's just a concrete one. It's probably at least 1,000 gallons, I'm guessing. And then it's got a liner in it that's got to be listed for potable use and, yeah.
Speaking of cost,
And I went to high school with this guy. I found out later after at the end of my inspection, yeah. I was at my 10-year reunion. Yeah, I was at my high school reunion. He's telling me about a place in Bend. I'm like, you don't have composting toilets in that house, do you? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, gosh, that's your place?
what are the costs?
I have another
Years?
question. Sorry, go ahead.
Hold on, Mike.
I was just curious, what are the costs for permits for the different tiers or rough estimates?
We're probably losing money on a plumbing, pretty cheap.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know honestly what that is because we've only had a few and most of them came in after we seen them out there. So we probably lost money on those, but that will be something we can get back to the group possibly once we
But it's
figure this
based on
out.
fixtures and sort of, it's not based on the valuation of the job, which a lot of stuff are. So higher valuation, higher permit, this ones are pretty low.
And I don't know if we even have that separated or not on our.
I think it would just be counting fixture units.
Yeah.
One more comment on Jared before we get back to you, Mike. That's why I kind of showed just the washing machine, just the bathroom in case, I can't do the whole house. You know what that would cost? Well, do a small remodel or doing an addition, my master bedroom and bathroom, you could do that as well, but. Do you, Mike?
Well, I mean, kind of on that note, so we've done a lot of outdoor showers around town, and the inspectors all make us pipe that directly to sewer. So I'm just wondering
That's per the plumbing code.
Yeah, so how do we get around that? I mean, what sort of, you're talking about washing machines and bathtubs, or what kind of filtration do you need to be able to take that back out into the landscape?
Well, that's not in there under that SAM thing, so it's probably been one of your projects that I've looked at possibly, I don't know, but I've worked with the plumbers on that, and what I've kind of came up with, because DEQ doesn't want stuff just running out on, see, that also is going on top of the ground. See that, our type 1's going subsurface underground and then coming up. But I told them, I said, because we have a lot of people want to do an outdoor shower, and I'm like, that's possible, but it is for plumbing code. It's a fixture. It needs to go back to the sanitary sewer. It's outside. We're always also trying to keep it from freezing. But what I have probably been some rules on is like, hey, if it's sitting next to maybe your pool, I had one the other day, the guy had it by the pool, and I go, if you can make it look like this, and it isn't a shower, so we're not using shampoos, we're not using soaps and stuff, it's just a rinse off. Then I was able to just kind of let that drain over. Now, should I be contacting DEQ on that? Probably, but it's hard for me to get a hold of them sometimes.
Mike, is there
Well,
ever any
yeah,
hot
we've done the same thing, make it look like one thing, but it's used for another thing. So, yeah, that doesn't seem like the right way to go about it.
What was your name again?
Jerry, do they ever have any hot water for those showers, or it's just cold?
They are, and so that's another thing I gotta deal with. I'm like, okay, then inside the building or wherever it's coming from, I've got to have a way to winterize that and freeze protect it, blow it out. Yeah. And then I can't do that below grade because that's it is not the easiest thing to do. So I just last month was dealing with one. I'm hoping it wasn't his project right there.
We had a couple of questions. How many permits for gray water are you guys seeing in the year?
Not very,
Handful?
yeah.
Less than 10.
Like the OSU's been a big one, right? So that
Commercial.
did that. Some of them probably go in and not contact us because I've actually had DEQ get a hold of me. And I go, well, I actually have talked to that individual and they were supposed to reach out to you. So here's the other thing I guess I should bring up. Before you can even come to them to get a permit, you have to reach out to DEQ and apply for a permit and get that approved from them. This one that we looked at, this big one that had the composting toilets and had everything up there, he actually got turned down like twice before he was accepted. And, he's close to the river. It might be his soils, it's different things. So then he had to change some things. And then after he moved in, but we kind of had a pre-plumb for that. After he moved in, he was able to get that permit for that. So anything gray water distribution outside that building has to go through and be approved by DEQ before it can come to us. And then you could apply for a permit for us, but that's the first thing I'm going to ask in my review is like, did you get approved from DEQ yet?
So process wise, if this was a desirable thing to really encourage, like process improvement or at least education, might have to be a thing.
And and they're shorthanded, they've got one guy in charge of this whole thing, but he did get a helper here a few months ago, so.
But you can cut them out if you keep it all indoors.
Yes, yeah, if we don't go outdoors, then it would just strictly fall under our alternate methods for, yeah. And then we're just gonna look, say, once again, just make sure your system is properly, listed, labeled, you're using a sanitized system that's approved by the state. Your piping's gonna be either purple or labeled correctly, so it would be fairly simple for the reuse inside.
Gotcha.
It's like I say, I stumbled on one, it was the washing machine. I'm like, we can't do that, but I found out, I think in like California, Arizona, you can, one of the states you can, but not.
The other question I had, maybe Dan, you can help with this. You guys had the 50 gallons per day on average per person consumptive use, but that didn't seem to incorporate irrigation.
Right.
I'm just wondering what % of consumptive use or potable water is common irrigation.
We've got some slides on that.
No, in the summer it's gotta be, because my bill goes way up.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe let's go back to the slideshow because Dan was gonna jump in the couple slides here, we just a couple more.
Yeah, we dropped, so the slides have these additional references links, so those are in the chat too, and we can send them out afterwards. And we also included the DEQ website link in our agenda for folks who are curious about that. That's pretty easy to find. All right, Dan.
So I think it's the next slide. Please, Aubrey. So this is just when we're looking at it strictly through a conservation potential lens, like any measure, what's the cost? What's the benefit? What's the feasibility of, you know, this, so this is information from our customers. This is, you know, based off information that we collect out of the field, doing irrigation audits, things like that. And so when we're looking at this, it's like, how much effort and money are we going to spend as a city to implement this versus the water saved and the benefit to the customer and to our water system? So for our single family residential customers, indoor average consumption across our 23,000 customers is 99.4 gallons per day. Average indoor. And so what I'm doing here is I want to compare possible applications, right? And every single family residential tried to do offset irrigation. That's our concern, is that seasonal peak demand, right? So there's a seasonal aspect to this.
Dan, can I ask real quick? So these are our actual numbers.
Correct.
99.4 is indoor use typically in Bend.
Average across all single family residential folks.
And then, but you had the information from somewhere else that said 50.
That's a national number. 50% is the national.
50 gallons.
Yes, per day per person.
We like our showers long.
So we're actually less because we're outdoor people per household.
So that's what I wanted to point out too. So this is gallons per day per household. The number you were showing was
Per
50
person.
per person.
Oh, so in
We're
Bend,
over them, yeah.
it's 47 gallons per day per person.
Okay.
So that's why I put per account, because I'm doing some rough high level math,
Okay.
right? So that's per household or per multifamily account. So that could be 10 units, that could be 100 units, right? But that's just an average. Just because at a high level, we're trying to look at, okay, what are we actually impacted, right? And so then there's the distribution. So here's where the numbers are coming from. There's the distribution of indoor use for our Bent customers. And then what is the potential then we have available if we take toilets out of that as not another reuse option of gallons per day, right? So when we're looking at offsetting irrigation, typical irrigation system can be doing 16 to 20 gallons a minute. And a runtime, 10 minutes, you're 200 gallons you're putting out on one station. Most people have 4 or 5 on an average household, right? Maybe less. So if we've got 73 gallons out of that 99 of total indoor use, you take toilets out, 73 gallons we have available. How much is that offset, right? We're not even half what we need for one station, right? So right there, we're going, well, we're really not offsetting our outdoor water use that much. And then that's only available because of the seasonality, 120 days out of the year with single family residential, because for the reasons Jerry mentioned, right? We have frost, we're shutting off our irrigation systems or the distribution that would go out through. And then, so total, if we had the 73 gallons available for the 120 days, that's about 8,000 gallons of water we're able to offset if we were watering every day at that 73 gallons. So our average outdoor use, right? And our average outdoor use is 65,000. So we're offsetting 8 of the 65 that on average we're using. Versus if we look at multifamily, so this will be probably a different type of system, probably like a large catchment treatment and reuse for flushing toilets, right? Is how I imagine. I'm keeping it out of the outdoor space. Yeah. So our average potential water or gallons per day is 175,000 on average for multifamily. So taking toilets again out of the picture, that's about 128,000 gallons available.
Wow.
If we're only using that for toilet flushing, again, that's probably way more than we need.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's at 27%, but there's a lot more potential offset there. And that's happening 365 days a year. Right? So when we're looking at implementation of this, and the other fact I didn't even mention is about 47% of the irrigation systems that we inspect every year are at or below a range where they shouldn't even be operating due to lack of maintenance. So that can be leaks, that can be things that aren't adjusted or maintained. So if we can't even get people to maintain their current systems that is putting out clean potable water, how are we gonna manage underground drip systems, which are prone to clogging? They're a lot more maintenance than a typical overhead broadcast system anyway. So there's that aspect we didn't talk about. It's like, what do we want to get ourselves into where we're gonna have varying levels of maintenance when the homeowner takes it over? And so what's a safe place for us to operate with the biggest return on investment as far as like just strictly talking about water conservation, right? And none of the other benefits or aspects, just, yeah.
One thing I was gonna say too, I forgot to mention that. So once you do get that permit from DEQ, if they approve you, you can install the system. If you ever go to sell your house, now you've got to, the new owners have to reapply.
Oh.
For that, yeah.
Doesn't go good. Yeah. They want to inspect it again, make sure.
And this is where we're a little shorthanded. I know we have some from DEQ on here, but they actually don't even come out to inspect this. It's
We don't
done
have
per
any
house.
DEQ on the
Okay,
meeting.
so it kind of.
So you see whatever you want.
So they'll approve it from the office, and I've even looked at what I went to do, and I'm like, well, that's way below 12 inches. This shouldn't even be, but that's not mine. You know, I've got a good relationship with him, and we talk quite a bit off and on, but, you know, they don't have the manpower that they need to. So like you said, we can't get regulate stuff. Who's actually doing this? My concern, honestly, and some of it is like on some of the cluster housing is like contamination. Because we're absorbing all the soils, you know, and then if they're not even putting it in right, you got all the kids playing with their Tonka toys. Big lot, it's fine, but when you have cluster housing, and that was the other thing on the, sorry to get off subject here, but on that, I think you have to reapply to get your permit if you sell your house. And, see, oh, it is only good for like where it doesn't work on the cluster housing. If you got one tax lot, DEQ looks at it as either single family or like a duplex. That's all you can have on that. Where I've had people trying to do 3 and 4 units, was what we have now in Bend. That's not a scenario you can do this, even though they're still trying. But I leave that up to him. That's enough for me to say now. That's up for DEQ.
That's the DEQ stuff. So that's what they're trying to use it out.
Yes, yep.
But DEQ's not involved.
No, and not indoors. Yep. So you have to send me the link too on what you found for that, what you're looking at. I'm just curious.
Oh, that unit?
Yes, to see if it would, what they're selling.
Okay, yeah.
So Dan, what you're saying for multifamily, so the red print.
Yeah.
So 175,000 gallons for a typical multifamily is the consumption, 128,000. So basically 3/4 of that is potentially available for gray water, but it could only be used for the toilets, which is maybe 1/3 of that.
Yeah, so depending, and again, I'm not the expert in the systems. I'm just looking at the water numbers. So potentially, if you had the treatment, you could be recirculating that into toilets in the buildings, but also during seasonal months, if it's treated, you could put it outdoors. So that's what I'm saying, the availability of use is greater there when we're able to reuse it indoors. And potentially the numbers, you could get rid of maybe that 128,000 during those 7 months outdoors if you had it treated to a certain level. So again, not discouraging any of these. We're just counting it. 8,000, almost 9,000 gallons isn't chump change. Are we at the point with the severity of what we need to do to be pursuing that first over other measures that might be easier to implement and save more water? That's what we're trying to balance when we're looking at.
And how much would we have to incentivize it?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, to me, the closest similarity is the turf rebate program where we're spending a lot on that program, and that's up to $3,000 per house to get them. And then that's only paying for like 1/3 of the cost if they hire a contractor.
Yeah, so depending on what they're hiring, professional versus DIY, you can cover the cost for DIYs almost 100%. With contractors, it varies, right? Depending on scope, but.
That'd be an interesting question here is like, how does that pencil out?
So if you look at that, I mean, our average single family residential total is, I think, 109,000 a year. And if we got a 26% savings on that outdoor number through those programs, I mean, that's a bigger chunk of water, right? So does it make sense to do that? And then, yeah. I think I had one more slide that was just considerations, Aubrey, but happy to stay on this topic. So again, you know, is the feasibility in new development, like as we're densifying for multifamily and commercial, a better opportunity? Larger demand offsets, treatment and reuse. I think we have more options available to us for the treatment and how that's reused. The seasonality is a challenge, right? For some of those washer only type systems. And there's a lot that goes with that too, right? What types of soap are you using? What are we putting into the soil, salts and phosphates and things like that, if they're not following those recommendations? And I mentioned the maintenance piece is key, no matter what we're doing, right? On those systems. And then limitations to distribution based off of what type they choose, right? Type 1, 2, 3. And then I think, Elizabeth, some of these were yours maybe?
Yeah, I had just for relationship to stormwater facilities, I just did like a little bit of research what's out there already for pros and cons, but if gray water and stormwater can be managed together, they do help each other. So when we can get more stormwater infiltration in areas where we're putting gray water, it can help reduce some of the impacts that gray water has on soils. So kind of diluting whatever you're putting out there through the system, especially for ones that really don't get any treatment directly from the washing machine. So depending on what kind of detergents people end up using, that would be a problem for the soils and plants. And then a con, I think this was already mentioned, but in Bend, we have a lot of issues and constraints as we densify more, and we already see a lot of problems with infiltrating stormwater on these highly densified residential areas. So adding another source of water to them, or trying to even make space for gray water systems and plumbing in these already constrained setback areas can be a real challenge for us in certain highly densified developments. And there also could just be areas where we already know stormwater doesn't work well. So do we want to add other things that require infiltration like gray water? So steep slopes and low infiltrating soils. And that's also a con. So it could potentially reduce the capacity to infiltrate existing stormwater facilities if you're consistently saturating the soil, things like that. If you don't have like the drying out period for infiltration areas, that can reduce their capacity as well. And then another thing that we have to be mindful of is that gray water should really be infiltrating, whereas stormwater systems, they're built with a certain capacity and an overflow in emergency system scenarios, because it is just rainwater, whereas gray water could have other contaminants in them. So we really do need them to infiltrate, and we don't want that like spilling over into the street or into the main stormwater system, getting to the river, things like that.
Mike, did you have another question?
I had a thought, maybe crazy, but you know, with those spatial challenges, you know, is there a way that you could incentivize your developers, especially with the tight packed in housing, you know, your hidden homes and polish and whatnot, to install a gray water system that then irrigates the public right of way, knowing that the right of way is kind of one of our big 3 water users. So you're really just taking it to a central location, you know, maybe it's 1 or 2 fixtures that could then irrigate the surround, you know, probably not the internal right of ways, but the surrounding right of ways that the city typically has to irrigate. It's just a thought.
I was gonna say, then we'd be relying on that they're treating it properly, you know, unless
Yeah,
there's
well, there would have to be regulations for sure, but you know, that could be built into the infrastructure when they're developing the neighborhoods.
I could see this being managed similarly to stormwater, where you have a central location for treating the water, and then, yeah, it gets used just for the HOA spaces or the, you know, yeah, like you said, the right of ways and stuff like that.
Right.
But
And of course, there's costs associated with all that. So maybe the city
Mhm.
could incentivize them somehow, to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, forward looking, because you'd have to have the infrastructure there to drive that from that central location, but I think that's a down the road, good idea.
Yeah, treating a whole subdivision, kind of like a commercial site.
Yeah.
Or
With a
institution.
green strip or whatever.
Yeah, sorry, Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, we've tried that in other communities historically, and it never flew. And I'm just throwing out the flag, something to think about and to discuss. But it becomes really then a maintenance issue because you have a private entity who is holding the facility that's serving the public property. So there's always a maintenance and some type of agreement that seems to always be the rub. At least that's what I've run into the past when I've heard ideas like this. We've tried to promote them in other communities.
A question I had about like the type 1. It seemed like it was going directly into some sort of catchment, and maybe there was like a baffle or something that solid settled if any particulate matter got in there before it went out.
That's outside my three-way valve. You're gonna have to. Landscape experts, yeah.
Yes. So I was curious if, I mean, even subsurface drip, right? When you get that reverse suction, right, or that backflow, even like the small particulate matter from soil can plug those. Like, how does the filtration or the treatment of that in a type 1 system? What does maintenance look like? I mean, are there filters in there? Is there chemical added? Like, what is?
On type 1?
Yeah,
That's,
versus raw.
where's my landscape guys?
It's gotta be like lint from the
Yeah.
washing machines, right? Stuff like that.
And that's why, so if there were, whoever is it would be up to the designer, right? So if not, you're gonna have problems. It'd be up to the designer to probably do that. And I'd probably have a 2-stage system, like we'll have like a settling one, maybe that had some screens or something. Move one over to your other one.
But that would be DEQ guidance on how to set that up.
Yeah, and the person that's submitting the, I think you gotta be a landscape engineer. A homeowner can do his own, but it can't just be any Joe Blow out there doing this too. That's all under those regulations.
Okay.
One thing I was gonna say too, because, city being water is, a big portion of our water in town, but we also have other water districts. One of them's Avion, which has got a pretty large presence. So we had a cluster home community going in, trying to do this gray water distribution out. In my opinion, I'm all for it if it's done right, but it's just too small. As she just brought out with the stormwater, we already have that issue, and you're adding this to it, and that's what I happen to notice. I'm like, well, we can't, subject our footings and then introduce water to them, because that goes against building code. So anyways, they got a hold of it, and they were trying to cross property lines with it, the way it was, because it was kind of a community, but they did kind of have it dissected supposedly into separate tax lots, trying to make this work. Well, then Avion got a hold of this, and they realized, hey, we don't want this contaminated water, because it was a type 1 that's not treated. If they have a line break, that's instantly going to suck that soil right into their system. Now they've contaminated their entire, customers for all their
There's a
water.
bunch of water meters right there.
So they shut that down, and they had already plumbed the inside of this place with this stuff. So that was something to kind of consider too. So that's what they were a little concerned with. They didn't want it sitting on top of their water lines because they didn't have nowhere to put it. So they're trying to find different spots. That's why it's not the idea. It's a great concept in the right, lot. But for it really tight and densified, it just doesn't seem to be the greatest, easiest way to make it.
In mandatory separation from the water line being that.
No, water line's only gonna be 30 inches down. This stuff's like 12 inches above. And so, then how it goes, just saturate through the ground, right? And when water goes down, it's gonna saturate. But if they have a line break, so you got this Venturi effect, and it's gonna suck that.
So for the commercial applications, like the system at OSU, is that an automated treatment system, or do they have to have like a certified operator to test and?
It will have eventually. They're not there yet. So what they've done now is these buildings are plumbed this way. We have a separate line, everything's done. So right now, we've teed off of our potable water line serving it. And then, once I leave, I don't know what goes on. So I made him put an RP device above grade on that, temporarily feeding that. So when they do get their system, that's gonna be at the state level, because that is gonna be basically a treatment.
Yeah.
They're gonna do, they're gonna be actually not even gonna be gray water. I thought it was originally just gonna be gray water. Well, now it's gonna be everything going to it. And they're talking about actually even purchasing from the city, what they call it, mining our sewer of Simpson is what they're trying to do, because they don't know if they'll have enough. So they want to maybe purchase some of our
That
wastewater.
is a long-range plan. Jerry and I won't be around to see that.
No, I'll be.
So it's really cool, but that's how far out they're looking. Just say, okay, we need to get the piping in now.
Pretty neat system.
On the road, we'd like to have a big plant and have it self-sustaining. and all that.
Yeah, but that will probably be state regulated, because it would be like our treatment plant, you're gonna have to have, somebody who's overseeing that.
Yeah, DEQ permit, yeah.
So that's another good, interesting point you bring up is, how that affects concentration of sewer going to our plant, right? So if we're taking big chunks of water that we use, to move and dilute sewage to our plant out of the system.
If they're mining it, you mean?
Correct, or
Yeah.
just like if we're converting, let's say a big complex, right? Where we have so much input from that complex to move solids down the pipe, right? Because it's all gravity and whatnot, and dilute it. How are we affecting that treatment process too, right? So there's an adapt.
Because your total waste is going down there, you don't have that extra water going with it. Yeah,
Right.
good point.
Not anything we can't figure out, sure.
Yeah.
Consideration.
Yeah.
Maybe let's go to the list of questions, because I want to, and I'm sorry, Ashlyn, while she's doing that, Ashlyn, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I missed a small part of this, but was there a requirement for inspecting the systems after a home has sold? Was that something that was talked about?
You can let the DEQ, you have to.
Yeah, so what I've read online, and it's in that information link, once you sell that, because you have a permit with them and you're supposed to maintain this, because there's a lot of maintenance on this stuff too. Supposed to maintain it. They're pretty much just like a handshake of, hey, you're using it when you're not supposed to. Just like you said, hey, right now it's great. We could probably turn it on. I don't know if there might be certain months that they have you doing it. So not saying you can't, but you're probably not supposed to until a certain time. But once you sell the place, yes, they would have to reapply for a permit for that.
Okay.
This is
What-
the systems
what-
that are going outside. So
Yes.
that's not,
Not inside. Inside, you'd probably just have to, like anything else, disclose your system and everything, what it is, as far as I know. But outside, you would have to, that your permit now would be basically void, and the new people would have to take it on with the new ones. And just so they know what's taking place.
Okay, I see. We deal with all of our 1200C permits, and I can tell you it's not an easy process to turn over permits with DEQ. So that will pose a large challenge for people, I think.
well, so I think that's a really important thing we've learned today, is that there is a significant difference between reusing the water inside the house versus using it outside, because then you have DEQ involved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, you only have Joe.
Only Joe.
That's good.
That's fine. Yeah.
So these were our quick discussion questions. I guess I'm curious from anybody in the room, do others have personal experience with, living somewhere else and putting in a gray water system, or they've had a lot of people, customers like Mike mentioned, or clients who are interested in this or trying to explore what it would take? Okay.
It's not. I think for Dan's purposes, so you're trying to figure out whether or not, or are you just going to include some version of gray water in your analysis?
I think we should, right? Because it's a council directed to kind of investigate this. I think what we put into the model, like what types of systems, that's what I'd like to hear from the group. I mean, from the permitting side, concerns, where it might be applicable to, interests at the single family residential level, just ideas. What do we want to model?
Yes, like.
I think that is one of the-
zoning and land use even,
Yeah,
an inside outside, maybe.
yeah,
could be.
that is one we will look at.
You know, I think from a single family, like high-end single family, you know, realm, which is kind of where I work, almost every client or homeowner wants to do it. It comes up in almost every beginning of the project, but they kind of get talked out of it by the builder or just kind of scared of the process and how cumbersome it all is and eventually just give up. So making it easy and educating builders would be really good. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Ashley?
Just thinking about Dan's, kind of order of magnitude. Does the code say anything about like using, say, thinking about breweries, like the water that they use, like, to backwash their systems or, any type of industrial uses of gray water? Like, is there any sort of capacity to capture that, or is most of it just too not?
I think it's the definition that Jerry read, gray water comes from.
Yeah, and that would be in that list of what is an improved gray water system. That's more of industrial, like pre-treatment type stuff.
It's a great idea if you could figure that out.
Yeah, I didn't know if there's any code or any technology kind of moving there, just thinking about like those sheer volume of water that goes through some of those systems.
Well, in a car wash, that's all reused. So that's kind of new and that's ran through DEQ. So all the new ones we do now, we have so many tanks out there. All that water is not just going down our sewer system. It's going out, it's being retreated. That's pretty neat. And then it's being recycled and come right back in. So.
I would hope other industries would be the same way, just to save money. It's an interesting question about industrial uses.
It's way outside my wheelhouse. I was just curious.
I know they take it with the barley and use it to feed some of the cows. A lot of the farmers do that to kind of, all this little barley and give it to the cows.
Ashley?
My only thought is I think this could work on a larger lot, single family residential development, but in the dense areas like Petrosa, Easton, I just don't see this. One, it's a whole other system we have to design, which raises costs and the permitting and inspections and all of that. Trying to keep the prices of these homes lower without some sort of incentive from the city, I think this would be a no-go, as well as just, spacing between utilities. We already deal with spacing water to sanitary to storm. I'm not sure those are challenges we could overcome with adding another system. So I think this would be exciting to include on a larger lot project. And I do think that homeowners would see the value in it. But I think on the denser product, it's just not something that's going to happen for us.
The numbers you shared, Dan, indicate that multifamily might be a better way to go, and you have the maintenance people there and all that, maybe that's what we try to incentivize, and all, you get the whole building on board, they don't even know what's going on downstream.
Well, so the two highlights that were the amount of water and then also it's a more a controlled maintenance system. That's, I think, the worry maybe with the individual lots. But I was curious on those projects, and maybe this isn't the right group, but would we ever consider like SDC credits for a large commercial or multifamily? Because that could be the incentive.
That's what we can't really waive fees, but we can pick it up quicker or SDC credits or something, it's way above my pay
Are you
grade.
talking about reuse into the building, Joe? Are you talking about reuse into the building? Because in a apartment, you would be able to do distribution, right? Because that's one lot and that's more than a 1 and 2 family. Yeah, but
Alone, we was in a 30-unit apartment building, right?
If we're looking at strain on the system by adding all those units, where we're actually reducing that with the system. So could we
Well,
incentivize?
actually, we could think about two different types of SDCs there. You can think about the water SDC, but also the sanitary sewer SDC, if there's less discharge. So that's a really
But
interesting
if that's
question.
council's pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd say just to go along with her comment on like densifying stuff, so reuse inside the building, which you're talking about the costs and stuff. The one that I was involved with, and he builds a lot in town, he said after he did that, he would not do another one because of what it cost him.
like fund with the treatment.
Yeah, and it's hard to pass that back on, with everything else that's going on. But I mean, I'm with everybody else. I think it's a great system and the right lot.
We've had, when we first started our rebate program, the reason I asked is when we first started our rebates, we had developers reaching out to us from like Portland who were designing, so I think it's that big multifamily lot off of 8th Street. It's, I think still just graded out right now.
It started in April, yeah.
Yeah, but they wanted to do that. And he was putting the design in, I think it would be underneath the parking lot area, it was the big capture tanks. And he was like, well, what kind of incentive on it? Man, I've got like $4,000 incentive. That's not gonna help you. Like what you're talking about is higher level, like development fees. And so, I mean, I think there's, for the right project, there's people probably willing to do it that are looking at like the long-term costs and savings, but yeah, should maybe talk through that process.
And I'm not sure what did the issue. They probably got grants of some sort. Everything's how they were able to finance their stuff, maybe, but.
Maybe some incentive for them. Okay. It's been a great discussion.
Yeah.
So, I think this is really helpful to both us, talking to council about how we're discussing this for the council goal, and then how to help Dan with some input to figure out how to analyze it for benefits to water conservation. If I run that, so anybody have anything else, or otherwise, we'll jump to see if anybody would like to say something nice about Bend Water that we can use for clips in our 100-year celebration. But was there, anybody else have any other thoughts about which types of gray water things think we should look at, or incentivizing it, things like that? And if you're not an employee, please don't go out that door without us tagging it for you that goes into the non-public areas. Oh, okay, Julie, so how did we want to do this?
Well, I would love to actually take folks out to the demo garden, which is going to give us nice.
But we probably should do online first, though.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you, Maureen.
So the idea would be, so we're trying to get these little clips of people on, and we'll like put them into a cute frame or something, but we could use it for,
Yeah,
like maybe have a reel of them going on the website, or might be able to use them for social media. So you'd be agreeing to have your cute faces out there.
I'm hoping to use these videos to like seed a public campaign where other people will send us their own selfie videos saying, I love Bend Water because it tastes so great, because my business depends on it, all these reasons. Or I love Bend Water, so I planted a low water landscape in my yard. Those are the kinds of messaging that we want to get back from the public so that they can participate in this. And you guys will be critical to sort of seeding the clouds, so to speak, to get it rolling. We can roll it out hopefully on social media if everybody's cool with that. Letting people know that they can also submit their own.
Yeah. So if we did the ones online, is anybody willing to do something like that right now? Just say, I love Bend Water because, or.
Lori, I'm very happy to do this. I suggest, can I send something in when I don't have my McDonald's headset on in this tragic background that is my office? But if say again?
Of course you can.
So if you can just give some general parameters, should it be 10 seconds and when do you need it? Then I'll be happy to send something in.
If you could send it by end of next week, I think that would be good enough. And should email it directly to waterservices@bendoregon.gov. And anywhere from.
Or you can just send it to me, or even, yeah. Yeah.
Yep, we'll get it. And in terms of length, these could be anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds, I think, depending on what you want, all the great things you might want to say about Bend Water.
Is anybody else online right now who'd be willing to just send something, just see how it looks? We're honestly not sure how well it'll turn out to clip it from the meeting video, but this would be a good test for us. If anybody online is willing to say something great about Bend Water. Anybody?
I'll also send one in when I'm not.
Great.
else is online.
So you really need just a test?
Yeah,
I could be your
Jay's
guinea
willing to
pig.
do it.
who's that, Jay?
Yay, Jay.
Sure.
Jay!
I love
So
Bend
has-
water because it keeps me hydrated and gives me the ability to do the things I love.
So let's have you do it again, but let's.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
No, that was a
and,
one-cut deal.
Cue you.
Yeah.
We're gonna make you do a
So
repeat
down-
here.
Am I supposed to
Okay,
do
do-
it now?
Yeah, do it now, Jay.
I love Bend water because it keeps me hydrated so I can do the things I love.
It's awesome.
That's a perfect message. Thanks.
All right, folks, that was the first one. Who's next?
Yeah, who else wants to do it?
You might be able to get a group of folks too. Maybe if folks are wanting to have a buddy, it could be like, I love Ben Water, so I joined the WAG. Just saying.
Oh, Mike's doing himself. You want to do it, Mike?
Yeah, I could do one. Sure. Tell me when.
Really good.
Now?
You guys- Wait, I need the chatter to stop in the background. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I love Ben Water because it produces the best beer.
Nice one.
That's great.
Anybody else want to do it?
Anybody who wants to send one in, you know how to reach us, and I can loop back around with you after this meeting as well.
Okay. All right. It looks like that's it for online. Thank you. Thank you to the landscape architect community, because boy, they're the gutsy ones apparently. So,
quick.
and
Before we close to Lori, I'll do our quick look ahead so folks know what's coming next.
yes, please.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you everybody for the conversation about Greywater. Thank you to our guests, Jerry, for doing a presentation here today and for diving into the ways this can work with an in-house system and a landscape system. Next up on March 4th, we're going to be talking about stormwater and water conservation. So the annual report process, I think Elizabeth and Dan are both going to bring some highlights from their programs to this team, and then looking for some input on what kind of things are most important and exciting takeaways that could be shared with council moving forward into April, which is I think when Dan does an update or has a scheduled update on the conservation program. We've got some of the standards that this group has been talking about for a while. Wanted to give an update on some of those pieces, the drywall standard. Already talked a bit about the right-of-way stuff, but some other planned standard updates that are code and standard updates that are in the mix here too. So we're going to do more on stormwater and water conservation next month, and then drainage and density will be our topic in April. So quick note on what's upcoming, and we did share the new look of our webpage, which has all of our materials posted after the fact. We'll send out these links, resource links to our group here. So folks who want to spend a little more time with this will have that chance. And then of course the slides and stuff will get posted too. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
Enjoy the day.
everyone.